It's 197 years on this date at this place. New York Governor DeWitt Clinton, the father of American canals, pushed a shovel into the soil and lifted a spade full of dirt. Muskets were fired, a band struck up a salute, and a rousing cheer rose from the assembled crowd. Among them, the current Ohio Governor, Jeremiah Morrow, former Ohio Governor Ethan Allen Brown, future U.S. President William Henry Harrison, and Middletown's pioneer founder Daniel Doty, on whose land the canal was begun. So Daniel Doty owned all that land that we think of as the formerly land where the Armco Central Works was, in GO and all those buildings. At a dinner that night at the Golden Lamb in Lebanon, Governor Clinton toasted the event. The Miami Canal, like the Nile, will enrich and aggrandize the region of its transit, not by fertilizing a soil exuberantly rich, but of opening lucrative markets for its products. So in Middletown, the digging began to the south, to Hamilton. 2 years later, on July 1st, 1827, the first water was let into the canal from Pioneer Abner Innock's mill race, and by the 4th of July, it was deep enough to float the first canal packet, the Samuel Foer. Samuel Foer was a state engineer. If you go up 73, at one time you could look over there and see where the head gates were. There's still kind of an area, the head gates are gone, but there's still kind of an area that represents that. That's where on the Great Miami, a dam was built to divert water to come in right out here for the Miami Canal. By August, the canal connected Middletown to Hamilton, and by 1825 it reached the canal basin north of Cincinnati. 4 years later, the first leg of the Miami Canal connected Dayton and Cincinnati. It took them 4 years to get all the way through Cincinnati. You can imagine how complicated that was. Daily lines from Dayton passed through Middletown at 11 a.m., arriving in Cincinnati 10 hours later by 9 p.m. One thing that we don't realize is that, and there was a state law determining how fast the horses and later donkeys could pull the canal boats. It had to be less than 4 miles an hour. I don't know how they measured that. I've always wondered how that was possible. But anyway, it took a long time to get from Dayton to Cincinnati. Freight boats hauled grain and pork to Cincinnati, and area farmers could now produce to their full capacity, knowing there was a market for their goods. Governor Clinton's earlier prediction had come true about markets. In 1845, this is 20 years later after it began here in Middletown, the 115-mile Miami extension north was completed. And at Junction, the Miami Canal linked up with Indiana's Wabash and Erie Canal to finish the last leg up to Lake Erie. The canal, now called the Miami-Erie Canal, at last connected the Ohio River to Lake Erie. So when you think about the farmers in this area, most of their goods went south. But they could go north, and they could go all the way up to Lake Erie. They could go all the way across the lakes. They could link up with the Erie Canal in New York State and end up in New York. So that this was a big thing for them to undertake. Now, well, I'm thinking about it. One other thing that's interesting is that Ohio had two canals. This canal from Cincinnati to Toledo, but over in the center of the state, there's the Ohio Canal from Portsmouth all the way up to Cleveland. That canal, they dug the first spadeful of dirt there. I think it was maybe a week before this one. In Middletown, Ohio, the Miami-Erie Canal defined its future by providing markets for its producers, power for its industry, and passageways for people. So you could actually, down where the canal mural is downtown, that area was called Port Middletown, and you could stop there, buy a ticket on a passenger boat, either go to Hamilton, go to Dayton. It would take you all day, but you could get there. So to wrap up here, the man-made waterway that began at Daniel Doty's doorstep and carved its way through western Ohio brought the marketplace to Middletown. Very significant event, because prior to that time, Middletown was just a small village located on the Miami River, which was great, but it was still a very small village. So when the canal came through, and I've never been able to figure out why it was started here in Middletown, because Hamilton was the county seat. But we were lucky enough to have it started here in Middletown, and that's one of our claims to fame. So what we're hoping to do, and you'll hear a little bit about this also, is try to raise additional awareness of the canal over the next 3 years, leading up to the bicentennial of when the canal was first dug on July 21st, 1825. So we've got 3 years to, do some planning and try to have a significant event. I reached out to the State Historical Society this morning to see if they're starting to plan anything, see if they have anything in the works, or starting something, so that we can coordinate our events with that. And we'll try to do a citywide celebration for the canal, which meant so much to Middletown.
Middletown. I'm going to share with you here at the beginning what George Prout had to say on the 150th anniversary in 1975. He states that the canal is what made Middletown. Then he goes on to say it brought to the city the paper industry, the pork packing industry, and finally Armco. George M. Verity, founder of Armco, chose this spot because he felt he could use the canal to bring coal and iron to Middletown and ship steel sheets out. The canal started in Middletown as the Miami Canal, as Sam has stated, and extended from Middletown to Cincinnati, then from Middletown to Dayton, and on up to Piqua, and finally to Lake Erie, and became the Miami-Erie Canal. The Wabash-Erie Canal and Miami-Erie Canal joined to make it the longest canal ever built in the history of the world. He went on to say that it would have been possible to have gotten on the canal here and traveled in the western part of the United States over 500 miles by waterways. William Long, president of the Area Chamber of Commerce, commented, "This is an important day in our history and something we think needs to be recognized." Middletown. So here we are on the river, but the canal got its water from the river, and here we are talking about 197 years. Okay? So the 200th anniversary, as Sam has said, it's going to be a really big thing. So we have all these monuments in the city. We're going to have a tour. Before 200 years comes, we'll be having people go out, do the QR with the codes and stuff, so that they can be a part of the Great Miami River Way search, and we're going to have fun. So there's a monument across the street that's there, and it states on this monument, once Miami and Erie Canal, an underground railroad route, 1830 to 1860. Those traveling along the Underground Railroad found safe stations in North Main Street homes of African Americans listed on the other side of the monument. This was dedicated by the Middletown Historical Society. The names of those families, last names being Rice, Hawkins, Colston, Burgett, Miller, Hardy, Edwards, Nutter, Davis, Smith, Robeson, Merritt, Armstead, and Mitchell. Middletown, the canal, the river, all a part of the American history. Fugitives from slavery came through here, lived here, right here on Main Street. The settlement was there. So I spoke at the city council a few years ago, and I shared this, that the Underground Railroad is the one story in our collective history that offers early examples of racial collaboration in which whites, blacks, and Native Americans worked toward fulfilling the American ideals embedded in the Declaration of Independence and Constitution of the United States. Middletown. Important world history. Not just Middletown history, not just Butler County history. Matter of fact, there was only 400 people that lived in Middletown when the canal got built. So there we are, now here we are, as Sam has said and others have said, we're going to make this really big in 3 years. Well, 3 years is going to be next year, so we'll see how much bigger we can make it after that. But really appreciate everyone's interest. Middletown is special. I'm born and raised here. We had a lot of fun. We played in Smith Park. And so now that the Canal Museum is here, we're directing people to come. Middletown is on the state tourist guide, everything. So the theme of Ohio is Ohio, find it here. So we hope that everybody tells a story, and all you young people have fun, because it's yours now. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Jacob Schulte. I am the program manager for the City of Middletown's Economic Development Department. Our city has a really vital piece of both Ohio as well as national history, that being the Miami-Erie Canal. Middletown has a really historic honor of being able to be the groundbreaking site for the canal, and it is important for us to pay homage for this significant event in history. There's already been a lot of meaningful efforts, obviously, that have taken place to emphasize this history and the history of the canal. We have several historical markers present, not just at what's already been mentioned of Yankee and Verity, but also on South Broad Street. We have a stretch of Verity Parkway right there in the downtown area that's been named the Canal Street. We also have, obviously, of course, this great canal museum here. The city will be exploring more creative and innovative ways to better promote this momentous piece of our history. So, the city of Middletown is what it is today because of the canal. Our flagship industries, starting with tobacco and paper and eventually leading into iron and steel, wouldn't have been made possible without the logistical advantages and the logistical breakthrough the canal offered for the city. While the canal may no longer be here, we continue to feel its effects on the city's development. So, the canal's history was a catalyst for our future growth, and Middletown will once again rise to that level of greatness. So, thank you all for coming today, and we greatly appreciate it.